It's the name of my same name as on my poetry page.
How often do you post there?
I've been writing a fantasy novel for 5 years, and I post it incrementally as I write it.
Same name as
on
my poetry.
Oops. Okay, we are live. Hey, Alice. Thanks for coming. We're reading Slaughterhouse-Five. It's a cool book. While I'm posting this link, I'm just gonna kind of ramble, and if you guys feel so inclined, feel free to interrupt me. But it's an important book, Alice. It's about the horrors of war and also time, and also well, shit, what is it not about, really? Absurdism. The first line of the book is Billy has become unstuck in time, and the last line in the book is puta tweet. And I feel like because we were just talking about, like, because it's so weird the way it does time, like as you're going through the book and learning about the Tralfamadorians and him getting unstuck in time, the way the narrative is structured is not what am I looking for? It's not
Linear?
Yeah, it's not linear. So you become unstuck in time as you're reading with Bill, as you're going through it with Billy. It's like you kind of get to feel what that's like a little bit, I think. At least as close as you can get to
because
it.
it's impossible.
Yeah. But yeah, I was actually just going through it earlier, and there are a couple of passages I really like in here, like right near the beginning. I just thought this was interesting because this is written in when does anyone know when this was written?
I think it was 65. Is that right?
That sounds right.
69. Sorry, I was off.
Actually, I'm going to go back to that in a second, but there's one here near the end too, where he says Martin Luther King was shot last week at the time that he wrote this, which is like crazy. I guess that would have been around the time that Kennedy died too. Yeah, Martin. Yeah, it says at the beginning of chapter 10, it says Martin Luther King was shot a month ago. Robert Kennedy died 2 nights ago, and it's like, so this book came out at a time where it's like, obviously we all missed it, but like at a really weird time for people. It obviously came out way after World War II, like a couple decades after.
Yep.
but
during a time where like we could have jumped into a war with Russia like at any point. Like
yeah, for sure. Like I don't know, my relationship with this book is like the war parts of it are interesting to me, but obviously the thing that stands out about Slaughterhouse-Five, let's get into the meat of it, the aliens.
Time.
If you didn't know, Alice, Slaughterhouse-Five features an alien race called Tralfamadorians, and they have one green hand appendage with an eye in the center of it, and they see time as a landscape, as if I think he describes it as like a human being looks like a millipede with like a baby at the back and an old man at the front,
all at once.
Yeah. And like that, I think that also gives insight to how that would work if that was really, I guess what I'm saying is that's a good way to put what he's trying to get across. And there's a lot of that interwoven throughout it.
Have you guys ever watched Donnie Darko?
Oh yeah.
It reminded me a lot of Donnie Darko, especially during this scene where you could see like the pathway or like his future like that, kind of like the millipede of just this long thing that's like it's basically already there and it already always existed.
Yeah, and I think I remember the part you're talking about.
Mhm.
They like visualize that pretty well. It's probably really inspired by Slaughterhouse-Five, like a lot of things.
Yeah, when it comes to that,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
simple. I mean, there's like Dr. Manhattan from
Watchmen.
Watchmen. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that. He's kind of unstuck in time too.
he's definitely unstuck in time.
Yeah.
But it kind of makes you kind of like numb to a lot of things, sort of like Billy is.
Yeah, it's like maybe that's not the best way to live. Maybe that's not the best experience there is.
Yeah, it's not human.
The Tralfamadorians seem okay with it, but the way they describe it just seems like, I guess I'm just kind of pessimistic about it. It's like, yeah, the universe is gonna end, and like it's gonna happen because of a test pilot
Yeah,
fucking up.
why don't you guys
Right.
stop it?
I can't. Yeah, it just everything is, and it's like that to me. Like, I don't know. It's really depressing almost. Like, I guess if you exist that way and you always have, then it wouldn't be depressing. But as a human being, it's like I like to think, I guess, that that's not true. I guess now we're getting into fatalism.
You like to think.
Yeah, I guess so. Which I suppose let's talk about that. What do you think about free will versus determinism?
Oh, I'm fully determinist.
Okay,
I don't believe in free will at all.
that's really funny because my roommate is also named David, and he is like a hardcore determinist. But like I think I am too, with the caveat that we go through our lives pretending that we have free will.
I mean, you have to.
There's literally not another way to operate. Yeah.
Mhm.
But I think I agree with that too. It's like you are the product of your environment and also what your parents bring to the table. You're a product of like the biology and also your experiences. And I'm not necessarily sure that there's anything outside of that.
So like a framework.
Yeah. Is that your kind of worldview of determinism, or is that
Yeah, it's
similar?
it's heavily based on Nietzsche.
Okay.
Specifically, like kind of what got me into this whole mindset was the eternal return, where he poses it as kind of like just a hypothetical question type thing, where he would ask you like, imagine if a demon came to you and he said, when you die, your life will repeat all over again, and it will play out exactly the same. And then he would ask you like, how do you feel about that?
You know, I have a lot. I like to think there would be a lot more good experiences than bad ones. Like that would be a net positive.
And
Like
they're positive.
Yeah. I don't know if you were asking me, but
I mean, you guys too. Do you want to answer?
Yeah.
Would
Well,
you be?
that's interesting that you bring that up, because there's another Vonnegut book called Timequake, where that pretty much where everyone in the book or everyone in the world gets kicked back 10 years in time with their awareness, so that they have to do everything, or
They don't have a
everything that
choice.
happens to them again, but they are aware of having done it before, and they know what's going to come next, and you know how things are going to turn out.
Wow.
Sounds like a Kilgore Trout novel.
I mean,
Yeah.
that is a self-insert.
Yeah, David was just telling me that Kilgore Trout in Slaughterhouse-Five is kind of a Vonnegut self-insert as well.
That tracks.
Yeah, I can see that.
I looked it up because I was like, that sounds like it could be a real author, but the name is a little crazy for me to believe it. But yeah, I had to Google it and find out.
You're saying that's the name of the protagonist in another one of his novels, right?
Breakfast of Champions.
Okay, cool.
Oh,
So that's kind of like a reoccurring character, but it's also a self-insert of Vonnegut himself. Fascinating.
But we were talking about it earlier, but Slaughterhouse-Five also has him as a self-insert too himself. So it's kind of meta in a way.
Yeah, very. What do you guys think about why did he write that book that way? Which, I mean, he discusses this in the first chapter about how it's been a long time, him just trying to figure out
what it had. He comes back from the war and he figures out it's not as simple as just telling everyone what happened. Like that doesn't do it justice exactly. But that doesn't I have a hard time getting from point A to point B of how he made Slaughterhouse-Five. Like, I understand, no, you can't just tell it the way it is. But how do you get here? You guys have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, how did he jump to that?
Do you have any thoughts on that? Would you like to share?
I mean, if you're gonna point out the absurdism of war, then you might as well just go like hog wild with it, which is, I'm guessing, his thought process.
Yeah, maybe that's.
I don't know. I wonder if it's, to me, it seemed like it was just kind of recalling, I don't know, the nature of memory and how, and we were talking about this earlier today, but just how, you can have an experience or a smell or something that brings very vividly some experience back to your mind, and that you may you're in some ways experiencing time linearly, but you are always having you're always carrying around all these memories rattling around in your head that may pop in and out unbidden. I'm sure with something like having been in the Dresden bombing or something like that you'll have these things pop in your head all the time, even without you wanting them to.
I wonder if Vietnam going on then too.
Mm-hmm.
When did Vietnam start?
Our involvement was mid 60s through 75.
Yeah,
maybe
so it
maybe
would've
early
been
60s. I'm trying to remember.
Several years into Vietnam, and I
Mhm.
wonder if some of that brought back what had
Could
happened
be.
in World War II.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because they mentioned it in the book too.
According
Yeah.
to this, I was just looking it up for posterity's sake. Apparently, Vietnam was 55 to 75. That's nuts. That's a long
That's
war.
a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know it just started in the 50s.
Well, so the French, so the French colonial forces were in. So Vietnam was a French colony for a long time, and then they were involved in all these conflicts there. And then at some point, we got involved in the early 60s. They kind of handed off the whole situation to the United States.
Apocalypse Now is my favorite movie. I should remember that. Like there's a it's actually in the remastered version they made years later. But there's a scene where there is a like this French luxury mansion in the middle of the Congo, and the main crew that's on their boat. You guys seen Apocalypse Now?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay.
been a bit.
Yeah, so like the main character, he's snaking through, and at some point they come across just this French family just sitting there, and they're talking about what you were just telling me about. Like, they've been there occupying for a decade.
Mhm.
You know? And it's funny because they're talking about how like they're having they have this house. It's super nice, and but the environment there is so, like, there's so much life that like roots are busting up through their floors. Like, you can't just have a normal house like that in the middle of a jungle.
Right.
It turns they're like constantly fighting off invasions of like grass and roots and stuff.
Interesting. Yeah.
Um
Trying to plop a little piece of Europe down somewhere else, and that not working out all the way.
Yep.
Yeah. There's I think probably my favorite excerpt is from the first chapter when Vonnegut sits down with O'Hare and they're going over their memories of the war. And O'Hare's wife is like being really snide with Vonnegut. And he's like, I don't really know what's going on with her, but and then they're talking, and then finally she just has enough. And she's like, I'm not gonna like you're gonna go make a book about war, and then Frank Sinatra is gonna play
Like the main character.
the main character, but we all know that you were children, babies when this happened. And it's
Right.
like you glorify it, and then people are gonna be like, oh, war's great, and like have all this war. And he's like, I promise you. Well, he's like, first of all, I've been working on this book for 20 years. It's probably never gonna see the light of day. Second of all, I promise you there will be no character for Frank Sinatra to play in my book, in my movie.
Which is true. I can't see it.
That is true. There is no one is glorified in Slaughterhouse-Five. Everyone is human. There's no one that's like above human nature, which is a very like that's a mark of a good storyteller. It's like we have these archetypes of like superheroes and like altruism, but that's those pretty shallow characters. It's like we were just talking about Watchmen. I think Watchmen's a great example of how Alan Moore, the guy that wrote Watchmen, he was deconstructing the idea of superheroes.
Mhm.
He's like, what if Superman was not altruistic? Like,
And what if Batman was actually insane? Like someone like Batman would actually be.
yeah. That's an excellent point too. Like Batman is as insane as Joker. He's the other half of that coin. It's like, who the fuck does what Batman does?
And especially if you're a millionaire already, a billionaire, whatever he was.
Yeah, you're cracked. You're completely insane.
He actually mentions it in the book where he was talking to his dad, and his dad asked him like, how come you never wrote a villain? Because that's actually true about a lot of his books. They never really have a villain, or like you said, clear heroes, clear villains, clear anything like that.
Yeah. He did talk about that in the book. And I think it's a kind of story that mirrors reality, which makes sense because there's aspects of Slaughterhouse-Five that aren't fiction, but like the way his characters are so human, they're so real that it's like I think that's lost in a lot of stuff. It's a lot of authors and directors don't bother to make a human element, or if it is, it's in like some superficial way. It's not like it's like when the character fucks up, it's still cool. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's still cool somehow. Whereas like that's not what reality's like. Like your hero, Game of Thrones was actually really good about this. The at least like Song of Ice and Fire is really good about this, where like they build up, spoilers for first Game of Thrones book, they build up this altruistic character, this guy who is infallible, and then he dies in a really kind of there's no pride or victory. It's just that's life. That's how shit happens. He didn't go out with the traumatic bang. It's just kind of like a really, in a way, like it hits harder because you're expecting this big, and then it just falls flat. And in my opinion, that actually hits way harder. And I guess what I'm saying is I'm picking up on a lot of that with Slaughterhouse-Five too, where it's like, perfect example. When after Billy has his accident with the plane crash, and he's in the hospital, there's that other guy there, another veteran in the hospital with him.
The Kilgore Trout fan.
Was he?
Yeah.
No. That was when he went to the mental hospital. No. You're talking about the other guy, the guy who was like
In the actual hospital.
Yeah, he's like a historian.
Yes, that's what it was. He's a historian.
All right. Yeah.
That's
Talking about
right.
the 8th Air Force and the history of having to add Dresden in.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And Billy's like, he pipes up in the conversation. He's unconscious. He's in a coma. And then he goes, I was in Dresden, because they were talking about it. And then he's like, oh, he's got echolalia. He's just repeating.
Yeah. Not this loser.
Not this loser. Yeah. And like, you don't really get, Billy doesn't have well, actually they do talk about it at a certain point, and he convinces the guy that he actually was in Dresden. And then he's like, but you know, none of that matters because on Tralfamadore, I learned. And then like everything he says is discredited. And there's no resolution to that. That's how Billy's interaction with this guy goes. And I think that is a really good, that's good storytelling.
Or just I mean, Kurt himself talked about how he really couldn't find a way to finish the story itself, like what the high point would be.
Oh,
like,
this one?
Yeah, like in the very beginning, he was talking about, oh, maybe it should be when that guy got shot for like stealing a teapot or something, and then it ends up with just being a bird, you know, doing his little twiddle-dee thing.
Yeah. And like, what else is there to say? You know, it's like, I think that's so, I love the way Slaughterhouse-Five ends. I love that because it's like there's nothing else to say except the birds chirping, which is one of the first times that the bird chirps. He brings that up. It's like the birds said, tweet, tweet, because what else do you say about what's happening?
Exactly.
And that's where he's at. He's like, what do I say about this?
Yeah.
It's fucked up. It's fucked. Totally fucked. I was looking at numbers on because I noticed near the end, Vonnegut was speaking on Dresden and he was comparing it to Hiroshima. And I went and looked up numbers because I was curious about that. And you know, because Hiroshima is something that's like a lot more common knowledge. But it is comparable numbers. They say it was somewhere between 35,000 and 100,000 killed in Dresden. And the reason I don't have more accurate numbers is when they were going through, they didn't really do due diligence with like tallying. So we really don't know. But you know, war is a tragedy on every end of it. You know, I think like Professor Rumford in the book, he's talking to Billy and he's like, you know, it had to happen.
Yeah.
And Billy's like, I know. But Billy means that in a different way. He means that like a Tralfamadorian.
Like it was
like
meant to happen.
It had to happen.
Yeah.
But like this, you know, it's I love that interaction because they think they're in agreement, I guess, but they're not because they have two different views about had to happen. But like
because it's a determinist talking to someone who believes in free will.
Yeah, that's right. And I think, I guess, Billy would have to be a determinist. Mm-hmm. There'd be that's interesting. He can't actually have another worldview outside of that once he's experienced.
Once he's experienced that. Once he knows his whole life and he knows he can't really change it.
Yeah. How could you look at it differently? Yeah. Do you guys anything pop out of like your favorite moments with Slaughterhouse-Five?
Thinking about that, one of the things that you were talking about a minute ago about the historian, and I was just thinking about this with we were talking about the about how there was going to be no movie with Frank Sinatra made. I thought that was one thing that was interesting about the book was, you know, he's kind of, and I think writing from the perspective of like 69, you know, you're 25 almost years away from the end of the war. He's kind of already talking about in some way sort of myth making and, you know, packaging up things that happened in a, you know, sort of a narrative way and a, you know, very clean, here's what happened. And, you know, this is the story from start to finish, but it's kind of, he nods to that a couple of times that there's always going to be that, but throughout the novel, there's just the messiness and just the absurdity of the whole situation and just how there's no, you know, there are no heroes and villains in the story. It's just a lot of people in some, you know, on some scale, sometimes doing good things, sometimes just acting completely crazy, and just the randomness and just horror of the whole situation. Not really something that can be packaged up as a movie or in a history. Thought that was one of the things I thought was interesting about the novel overall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. the surrealism makes it more personal, makes it more real. I guess surreal like no, it's more absurdism is more accurate, like you said. Um yeah. I guess there are surreal elements to it too, because it feels like a dream.
Especially like
Yeah,
switching
sure.
between times.
Yeah. Do you guys think Billy was crazy, or do you think he went to Tralfamadore?
I think he went. But I mean, it's written in a way where you could have that extra theory, which I like. I like when stories do that, where you have that freedom.
Yeah. I don't think there's a correct or incorrect answer yet, because of the way it was structured. But what do you guys think?
I think it was all in his head. I will have to say that I was a little disappointed when towards the end where they started to kind of piece together where, Billy, where the whole Tralfamadorian story had come from. So, he goes into that adult video shop and Montana Wild Hack is in the back and, and all those little kind of pieces that are part of it. I was a little disappointed in that because I really just wanted it to be from Billy's imagination completely.
Yeah. I just finished reading again, maybe like an hour before we started this.
You made the connection too.
Yeah, and that's where we were just talking about that very part where he's in the bookstore. He's picking up Kilgore Trout and like he picks up a book where there are these two humans in a zoo on an alien planet, and it's like, oh, okay. And then throughout the story too, like his daughter is telling him he's crazy. Pretty much everyone is telling him he's crazy.
Yeah.
He got bonked in the head too. So
Yeah.
I mean, I guess another possibility could be that all these things that he's seen throughout his life, like in the bookstore, the Kilgore Trout, the I can't remember her name, but maybe his mind is backfilling all this stuff he comes across in his life as if this is all part of his flights to the planet, but his mind is just kind of backfilling all these details that he comes across over time into this sort of confused narrative that's bouncing around his head. Or it could be aliens. Could be.
Yeah. There was now that you mention it, Hyatt, he also comes across that picture of Montana Wild Hack in the bookstore.
Right.
Along with the stuff about aliens from Kilgore Trout. So really, like, everything you need to put together the Tralfamadorian story is material in that bookstore. That's fascinating. I mean, I think most of it at least is there. Enough
that he could weave it back, and if we're assuming for the sake of argument that it's all happening in his head and everything in his life he's experiencing in a non-linear way at this point, if he comes across something later in life, I mean, it's kind of backfilled into all these memories.
Yeah,
one way to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess also that's interesting because he was at Tralfamadore before he went to this bookstore, but time's weird. So
because you have to take into account when did he actually start saying all the crazy stuff, because there's a delay between that too.
That's after he got bonked in the head, right?
Yeah, and after the bookstore.
And after the
because he went to the bookstore and then that night is when he goes to the talk show or whatever.
Okay. Wow. Okay. It's a mind fuck. I don't know what to say about that. I do like the way he keeps it vague though. It's like you could. I don't think either approach is wrong.
No.
That.
Like one of my favorite parts, although it's kind of subtle, is it's when the English soldiers were talking to the American ones, and they were giving them advice before they went to Dresden, and they told them, like, I know you're in prison, I know everything's kind of fucked, but you should still like shave every day.
Be fast. Oh yeah.
Shave every day, check yourself, wash yourself, do all this. It's kind of like, I think the idea of what he was trying to write is like, you might live in a framework, although the English soldier wasn't doing this on purpose. It was like all subtle. But what Kurt was saying is you live in this framework, as in like determinism or whatever, or like you said earlier about like the way you were born or the circumstances or whatever. But despite all of that, you should still take care of yourself. You should still live as if you have free will, because if you choose not to, then you just die. You're choosing suicide, or you're choosing like depression. Because if you're fully determinist to that point, then it's like you just give up. There's no point in trying.
Yeah. And that's funny that you would bring that part up, because I actually bookmarked that paragraph. The Englishman got up on stage and he rapped on the arm of the throne with a swagger stick called, "Lads, lads, lads, can I have your attention, please?" What the Englishman said about survival was this: if you stop taking pride in your appearance, you will die. You will very soon die. He said that he had seen several men die in the following way. They ceased to stand upright. They then ceased to shave or wash, then ceased to get out of bed, then ceased to talk, then died. So it goes. Yeah, that part is really special, because it teaches like that is, you're right, that's Vonnegut speaking to the reader, not the Englishman speaking to Billy.
Yeah, I mean, it's both.
It's both.
Did you all feel that way during the pandemic at all? Not that war is at all the same as the pandemic, but you know, it was kind of everything was the same. You know, time felt a little bit unmarked by things in a way, as every day was somewhat the same, and it was hard to kind of get out of bed and think about doing your normal things and of getting ready and going out into the world. Yeah, I don't know. Did y'all feel that way?
Oh yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially with time. You're so right about that.
Yeah, I didn't. Well, I mean, yeah, I don't think I ever missed any work. Like I had consistent work, thankfully, during that time, but it really changed the way we had to work, obviously. And also, like there was a long time there I wasn't going to shows. There were
shows, no movies. There's restaurants were like really weird and limited.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I definitely felt that way, where it's like, and I think that's, you know, of the pandemic and of war, that's another one of these great tragedies, is the survivors and what they have to go through. It's like they still have to do what we're talking about. They still have to. Yeah, you have PTSD. Yeah, you looked a man in the eyes, and like at the moment before, like you're both about to kill each other, and you know, you beat him to the punch just barely, and in that last moment you like see the fear and terror in his eyes, and you realize he has a family to go home to too, and he's just been robbed of that. Well, I'm going to go home to my family now, and how the fuck do I put that away? And it's like, but that's what Vonnegut's telling us, is you have to put that away and continue to survive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's like, we read Mouse last month, and you know, you get to see a big part of that is what happened in Auschwitz, but also how it affected the survivor and his relationship with his son going decades into the future. Like we will never, like, we'll always feel the effects of tragedies like World War II, like Vietnam, like shit that's happening right now is going to mark history forever. And we'll never really recoup from that. All we can do is, you know, the silver lining is we can learn from it to make sure it doesn't happen again. And then, like, not to get like too depressing and philosophical about it, but that's why I've been doing this, and like why I'm talking with you guys. I appreciate you all being here, is like, we can't forget this stuff. Like that'd be the biggest tragedy now, would be to like not remember what had happened. Because if you I can't remember who said it, but if you forget history, you're doomed to repeat it.
I mean, it's easy to forget too, though. I mean, I didn't even know about Dresden until I read this book in high school.
Same.
Yeah.
Same. Yeah. And like, how many people do you think that's true for? You know?
A lot of people, most people, I would argue.
Yeah. How many other authors survived Dresden?
And imagine if he didn't, then I wouldn't have known about it.
Man. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the
Especially
other.
with that generation really dying out right now, almost completely. You know, it's good that we have things, you know, novels like this for people who were there, who just, I don't know, there's so many little details in the book just about his experiences that, you know, that weren't, a lot of which weren't pretty. And I think that those are the things that get lost when people die, is those little moments that maybe they weren't, you know. And I'm sure there are a lot of, you know, so many stories that are missed, that were never written down, that were just these little details, but you know.
But I'm sure it was so horrific that a lot of people didn't even want to talk about it. So
Yeah,
it's,
for sure.
yeah, I'm sure it wasn't easy to write that book
Yeah.
and to relive it in a way.
Yeah, no, definitely not. And that's another good point, is how many of the people that did survive were willing to like drudge that up and like do that, you know?
Yeah.
Holy shit. Thank you, Vonnegut. I found out, I was doing a little bit of research on him. He died in 2007 from he suffered injuries from a fall, and I didn't look into it any more than that. But like, I mean, he was getting old, but yeah, he fell and just didn't recover from it. But made it to 2007. He had a long life. Surprised he didn't get shot by a laser gun.
You just add that for fun. Like the United States, what was it, like 11 or 13 different separate countries?
Oh yeah.
They never even got into that.
Oh shit, you're right. Wait a minute. That's a good point. Because it tells you Billy knows how he's gonna die.
Mhm.
But by the end of the book, you don't get there. Because it's out of sequence.
Yeah.
So it actually happens a little bit earlier, you get to see it. But like, was that a memory? I mean, was that like a fake memory that he just imagined? Or did that actually happen?
Like, is the United States divided like that?
Huh. Oh, that's right. Because it was, yeah, it got dissolved, and then Chicago got bombed by China or something, as like its own country.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I forgot completely about that. I wonder where that's at. Because
It was like just mentioned once and they never really talk about it.
right.
I mean, on top of having laser guns, it's like an alternative history type thing.
Yeah. I wonder, yeah, that's a good question you asked. Like, was that for fun? Like, why did he put that in there?
I'm trying to find where that was.
I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, I remember it. It was like in the sort of in the middle, but
But like, it's such a short little, just a random mention, so it's gonna be hard to find.
Yeah, it's probably gonna be like one paragraph. Oh fuck.
oh yeah, I can't. I don't know. I can't find it.
Yeah, I'm gonna see.
You're gonna look it up.
I'm gonna look it up. But go ahead. Were you gonna say something, Hyatt?
I was just gonna say, what, you know, we're talking a little bit ago about the, you know, some of our favorite things from the book. Just one of the things that I like was just his descriptions of the people. Like, there was the whole bit about Weary, the guy who was always bundled up, and I mean, you could just see the guy and just you know, imagine how he moved and how he talked, just the way he was described. That was one of my favorite things about the book, was just how vividly you could just almost smell the guy.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's got such interesting characters, and like that's what's so cool, is like we were just talking about before. None of them are really heroes, and none of them are really villains. They're just all superhuman. And like what's that guy? One guy's name, Lazaro. Was that it?
Sorry,
Oh yeah, he's gonna kill everybody.
Yeah, that guy. that part cracked me up so much because it's like, yeah, like he's like, yeah, everyone that slights him in any degree,
Even a dog.
oh, that's right. Oh yeah. Oh God, I forgot about that. He fed a dog razor blades. Yeah, fuck that guy. What a complete nut.
But at the same time, he's just kind of pathetic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And like I think that's what, you know what? Maybe that's why at the end he gets shot, because it's like it's so ridiculous that Lazaro actually held a grudge that long and actually had Billy killed.
Yeah.
Like, and maybe that's the joke, is like Vonnegut knew someone like Lazaro who said stuff like that, and everyone knew he was full of shit. But
Right,
like that's the punchline, is he's actually gonna do it. maybe it's something like that. I did look it up. It's in chapter 6. So now I just gotta find it. Oh, ironically, that's the part with Lazaro too. I just passed the part where he feeds the dog razor blades. Oh, I, Billy Pilgrim, will die, have died, and always will die on February 13th, 1976. At the time of his death, he says he is in Chicago to address the large crowd on the subject of flying saucers and the true nature of time. Had to cross 3 international boundaries in order to reach Chicago. The United States of America has been balkanized and divided to 20 petty nations, so that
I was rough.
So that it will never again be a threat to world peace. That's actually I want to see a map of this America and how it's divided up, because it's not 50, it's not 51, it's 20. Chicago has been hydrogen bombed by angry Chinamen, so it goes. Billy is speaking before a capacity audience in a baseball park, which is covered by a geodesic dome. Flag of the country is behind him. Billy predicts his death within an hour. He invites the crowd to laugh with him. It is high time I was dead, he says. Many years ago, he said, a certain man promised to have me killed. He is an old man now, living not far from here. He has read all the publicity associated with my appearance in your fair city. He is insane. Tonight he will keep his promise.
And then that's it. They never mention this the way that the country's built up now.
Yeah. Yeah, like he's just kind of like, yeah, America's been divided it's been balkanized and divided in 20 petty nations, but that's irrelevant. We're here to talk about Billy. That's a very short part in the book. That's interesting though. Like, why did he put that in there? He also said if it is a prediction, he's off, because it says 1976. Which, I don't think it's a prediction, because this is written in 69. So he knows that America is not going to have this crazy change within 5 years.
No, it's like some alternative history thing.
Yeah.
I mean, and plus we wouldn't have like laser guns by then. That's just
he's just being
unless
silly.
you really wanted it.
Yeah. What isn't? Oh, that might be a 1984 reference. Actually, they have laser guns in that. I think that's. Has anyone read 1984? It's been a long time for me.
It's been a long time.
Isn't that how? Doesn't someone get assassinated with a laser gun? Maybe, I don't know.
I can't remember. I almost feel like that was like in Brave New World, which has been.
Oh, you're right. That is Brave New World. Yeah.
Remembered.
Maybe I'm
100%. That's Brave
Okay.
New World. I remember now.
Okay.
It's not 1984. It's Brave New World. I think that's a Brave New World reference where Lazaro kills him with the. It might be. Might be a tongue-in-cheek little thing like that. Speaking of Brave New World, maybe we'll do that on the pod soon. That'd be cool.
Brave New World.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. With that.
Do you guys have what books would you guys like to see on this podcast coming forward? I have some ones in mind, but
That's a good question.
So,
So are you wanting to stick with kind of a theme, or
I am enjoying like so far we've done Animal Farm, Mouse, and Slaughterhouse-Five. So it's all kind of been World War II.
yeah,
That's not really
Yeah, is that the theme, or what are you going for?
That's just how it's happened. That's not necessarily what I'm going for, but I am going for like important books that I think like are important, I guess. For example, my favorite book is of all time is The Alchemist, which isn't political or about war, but I think it's really important. So yeah, I guess that's the theme is important books.
Important books. That's pretty wide.
Yeah, it is. But I guess what are some of the most important books to you guys, and what would you like be excited to talk about and discuss?
The Stranger.
The Stranger?
By Albert Camus.
Huh. I need to write that down because I'll forget. What's that about?
It's about absurdism.
Okay.
But it's made by this French philosopher. I don't want to get too into it because the actual outline of the story isn't too complicated. It's more about the way the narrator like explains things. Like he's very he's kind of a sociopath in a way, or a psychopath.
Do you mind writing it down for me? Because I'll forget.
Have you all read any Shirley Jackson?
Oh yeah.
So we've always lived in the castle. It's a novella, and it's one of my favorite books ever. It's super quick read, but really kind of absurdist and crazy characters. Not really about any important historical times, but the characters are super interesting.
What was that one called?
It's called We've Always Lived in the Castle.
Cool. That sounds fun.
Yeah, well, that and Haunting of Hill House, but that's, I mean, same author. So.
Oh, I didn't know that was based on a book. I saw the show. That was good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the book's really good too.
Okay, cool. Yeah, just knowing that that's a book, I want to check that out. That show had a really cool plot twist that I won't give away. I was like that. You know, it's hard to find a good ghost story.
Yeah.
Just horror in general, to be honest.
Yeah, that genre is so oversaturated and shitty. It's like there's a gem every once in a while, but like so few and far between.
Yeah, but when it's good, it's good.
When it's good, it's good. Yeah, I realize that important books is really vague, but yeah, I'm not really trying to put myself in a specific wheelhouse necessarily, just things that
No, it's better that way.
yeah. And like we have maybe if maybe I'll do like a transitionary kind of thing where it's like okay, so we've done like World War II and maybe I want to get away from that now. Yes. Where do you go? Like, okay, so let's take Slaughterhouse-Five. What's the next move from there?
Vietnam. I'm kidding.
Oh, we could read Heart of Darkness, which is what Apocalypse Now is based on.
Yeah, that's really good. I wouldn't mind reading that again.
The problem with that one, it is like it's kind of hard to read.
Yeah,
like that's
that one's rough. Like, I mean, for me, it's like because it's Old English, like it's a trudge to get through.
Yeah, definitely.
But it is important. That'd be a good one for sure.
Yeah, I think the ship in Alien was named after the ship in
Heart of Darkness.
Heart of Darkness. Yeah, the Nostromo. I think that's the ship that they're on.
Okay,
that's pretty fitting.
Oh, I never made that connection.
What'd you say it was in that made a reference to it?
So in Alien.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Alien. I think the first one, the Nostromo, the ship that they're on. That's the name of the ship in Heart of Darkness.
That's interesting. I wonder how much of a parallel there is, because they kind of are going into the Heart of Darkness.
Yeah, in a way.
Like even when they land, it's like they just go deeper, you know?
Yeah.
Man, what a good series. Do you guys like the more recent Alien movies? I thought they were actually pretty good.
Haven't seen them.
Which do you mean by more?
There was one called Covenant. I think, or Isolation, something like that. And there's also Prometheus.
Say that again.
There's-
Sorry.
There was Prometheus, and then there was a sequel called like Alien Covenant or something like that.
I saw Prometheus, and I thought that was pretty good. It's interesting, just talking about or kind of going into the history or how it all sort of the backstory of Alien. I don't know. Sometimes with backstory movies and books, sometimes I don't know. Sometimes there are things that are more interesting if they're left in mystery. But
yeah, instead of like over explaining everything. Yeah, that's the problem with any sequel, I think, is like well, I take that back. Not any sequel. Like you can have, like, if it's designed to have a sequel, like you're writing a trilogy and it's like that was your intention when you set out. But then it's shitty when you have like Hollywood cash grabs. Like that's just, no one likes that. You're like, thanks for shitting on my favorite franchise again.
The newest
Oh yeah, the newest Matrix.
Mhm.
I actually I didn't hate it, but like, what was the plot of that movie?
Yeah, but at the same time, it wasn't like the very first Matrix. It didn't give you the same feeling.
That's a good point. Is like, it's who is this for? Did you guys see it?
I haven't seen that.
Not yet.
I did think it was interesting that like half that movie was scenes from the other movies. Like they actually took footage from the other movies and spliced it in, and like not just a couple of times, like
multiple times.
Like, oh, okay, I guess your budget was not great.
Yeah. Man, I'm gonna have to think about books to suggest, because yeah, I feel like I definitely don't read like I used to. Or I read, if I'm reading stuff, it's a lot more like technical. I don't know, books about stuff, not like interesting novels about the nature of reality or whatever.
Do you read a lot of nonfiction?
Yeah, fair amount. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it can be a lot of just sort of random. I don't know. I read a lot of things about electronics and woodworking, but I have been reading an interesting thing recently about kind of the building of skill, how humans build skills and learn things, just about that process, which has been kind of interesting.
Nice. I'm not opposed to nonfiction for the book club too. Like there are a couple of like self-help books I've thought about. I'm a really big fan of I've actually got it right here, so let me just grab it. Really big fan of this book, The Art of Asking by Amanda Palmer. It's
I've heard
she was
of
in
that.
Dresden Dolls. She's married to Neil Gaiman. But it's all about if you ask people like for help, then like, and as long as you're like pure about what you're doing, that there's like a magical property to that. And like a lot of people are just scared to like be part of a community and help each other. That's probably something about our society, but like it's a really good book, and we'll probably do this one eventually.
Oh, talking about asking for help and all that, another interesting point on the book on Slaughterhouse-Five is that American guy who like turncoat. He was like a propagandist for the Germans. I forgot his name, but he was talking about where he was describing the American and why they're bad, and about how they were so focused on money and stuff, and that even the poor make fun of the other poor.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, it's like, and no other country does this, and they're talking about how the British war is fashionable. And it's like they're making a sport of it. Like, good show. Where it's like
That's why the Germans like them, but
yeah,
but that they saw the Americans as like pitiful.
yeah. And there's a lot of truth in that. Like, look at us today. There's so much infighting in America. It's all division, which, to be fair, like, this is put on us. I don't think we're naturally like this. I think tinfoil hat time, like Oh, actually, Ram Dass has a really good thing about this. Ram Dass was a guru, famous guru. He wrote a book called Be Here Now, which is another great self-help book we might do. But he famously said, by the people, for the people, but the people are retarded. Thank you, Ram Dass, for that beautiful quote. There's a lot of truth to that. It's like, in a perfect world, democracy works because it's for the people, by the people. The problem with that is people don't have real opinions. People are told how to feel and how to think about things. And I think that's more true today than ever before, and more true in our country than anywhere else, probably. Maybe, I don't know about that, but I don't know. I still believe in democracy. I just don't believe in our shitty government at all. Like, if we could like have like a reset and like, yeah, we could try democracy again, like from the ground up. But I don't trust that this left or right, that's a joke. That's a game to keep everyone placated, but nothing ever changes. It's all this other hand above them, and like, that's so it goes.
The unseen.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm really pessimistic about our situation. I'm trying to make the best of it, but I don't have a lot of hope. What do you guys think about that? Am I being too hyperbolic?
No, I think I think the sort of the media sphere with social media and technology and I think we have an ability to sort of self-reinforce ideas in a way now that is unprecedented, and we're still trying to navigate that as people, and I don't know that we know what the effects are going to be long term of that. And yeah, I would say people are people. I think a lot of the problems that we're talking about are just inherent to human nature, but I think the bubbles that people are able to get into and kind of the closure of information around yourself that seems new. The extent to which you can do that now in a way that you couldn't 20 years ago or longer.
Yep. It's like if you go back and look at like media from like the 70s, 80s, or even the 90s, it's like I think like 80s music is a great example of this. It's like, welcome to the future. Like we are the future.
They discovered synths.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like my point is, like, I feel like back then there is this idea of like, whoa, like as technology and the internet grows, we're gonna have like this awesome badass thing. Like it'll be like this thing where you click a button and have access to everything. And it's like, yes and no. You can access everything, but there's so much misinformation out there that it's like when you look something up, and then that's not even getting into like the corruption of search algorithms, like the corruption of Google, where it hides search results from you just arbitrarily out on their whim. But like I don't know, I don't even necessarily blame companies for doing that. Like it's their tool. I suppose they can do with it what they want. But I also think there shouldn't be like a monopoly on social media at that point. Like it shouldn't just be Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. Like, and we need more options. Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, the options are there. Unfortunately, you live in a democracy. Those are popular because people vote for those. Because technically we could go to like any offshoot or whatever, but if not enough people go into it, then it doesn't really have value.
I guess that's true. With social media, it has to be like the one that everyone's using.
Mhm.
Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah, then what's the point?
Yeah.
So like, I guess the only thing you could say is maybe if the government runs it, but that could have its own problems. So like,
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's called like the two-party problem. Whenever you're trying to get, start some sort of a marketplace or a community, when you've got to get, this, it's not just, one person coming to a company or to, your website or your app or whatever, to be a customer, that you've got to have this third party and then this third party, and they've both got to be there for the whole thing to work. And you don't really have any control over that. I mean, I think that's, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where I was going with that, but that just that's just,
So it goes.
yeah. So I guess, no, that's just the point that you're making, that, you can't, that people are going to choose what they, which one they want to use, and, vote with their feet. And people are going to go to the one that everyone else has chosen. And you don't really have much control over that. Either as an individual or a person starting something like that.
Yeah. It blows my mind that people still believe in the electoral process here. Like, it actually like stumps me. Like, why have people not realized that this isn't working? Like, this time it's going to be different. Like, okay.
I mean, I think technically it does work. The problem is you got to look at the people who actually vote. That's the issue.
And
especially who votes like locally, not just like president, but like
oh, sure. Yeah, I guess I am speaking about federal elections versus like state elections. There probably is a lot more democracy.
Like we can complain about like the prices of rent and all that, but the people who actually vote are homeowners, and they're that's the reason it's so pricey. But that's literally democracy working. It's the people that vote that choose how things end up.
Yeah.
So the solution to that isn't easy, other than like convincing people culturally, like they have to care. I guess
what I'm saying is I'm not sure that that's actually the reality we live in. Like, that's how it works in theory, but I think in big part that's how it works. But I think there's also this unseen hand, shadow government thing that kind of I think maybe with things like on a state level, I think I agree a lot more that we still have democracy. But when it comes to the federal government, I'm not so sure. I think maybe fucking elections are rigged, and like your votes aren't. I don't know. I just don't buy it. I don't buy it.
You just don't buy
it. But what thing do you not buy?
That
they're counted properly, or that, I mean, there's definitely the way, if you're talking about presidential elections, with the way that the electoral college is set up, I mean, yeah, that definitely skews things in a way that a direct election wouldn't.
I guess that's also a good point. Because we have an electoral college, we don't technically have a democracy. We have a republic, where it's like, well, that actually, electoral college isn't what makes it a republic. The fact that we have state officials is what makes it a republic, right? Because like true democracy is your votes count equally, but because we have the electoral college, that's not actually how it works. You have a state vote, your state has a certain number of points it gets. So to go back just a little bit, the thing I don't buy is I'm not necessarily sure that that votes are counted properly, and I'm also not necessarily, I'm not speaking about this last election necessarily. I'm talking about in general. I think they fucking pick, and if they don't just fucking pick, they pick of two, definitely, right? It's like they pick is it going to be the Democrat option or the Republican option? It's like, those are your choices, and they picked what the choices are at the very least. Like, for example, Bernie tried to run Democrat, and they just it was funny for a lot of people. Like, to see how the DNC eats itself, because it's like you see the DNC attack outside, but then like they ate Bernie alive. They just Elizabeth Warren during the debates was like, he told me in private that he doesn't think a woman could ever be president, and the moderator is like, did you say this? And he's like, that's preposterous. I would never say such a thing. and she just, he says that, and then she goes, so why did you say that to Senator Warren? And he's just like, okay, well, fuck you guys. Like, I don't know.
Then don't worry so much about federal. Just worry about the local.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
I guess there are a lot of things I shouldn't worry about that like are out of my hands.
I mean, okay, what is that line in Slaughterhouse-Five from the Bible?
Oh,
God, give me the strength to like. I forgot.
I got you.
That's the serenity prayer.
And here's a picture, Alice. But yeah, it's on what's her face's Montana Wild Hacks locket. It says, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom always to tell the difference. That's something I should take to heart for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I definitely, yeah, that's very true. I worry about things that are outside of my
Outside of your control, but if you don't pay attention enough to like
The state government, yeah, and like what I could do on a local level.
which actually that's actually direct democracy.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I should get more involved. Like if I'm concerned, I should get more involved locally. Yeah, and that's people. Like how many of us are? I mean, not to just like shift that off because that's definitely true. But like I think that's probably true for a lot of people, where it's like they're so focused on like these federal things that they're not actually looking at what's right in front of their
What's
face.
local.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, the people who vote are homeowners, so that's why our prices are like that. And that's not really going to change federally. Or I mean, I guess it can, but like the chances of that are like almost impossible.
Yeah. Yep.
Just run for
And-
city council.
That's a bad idea for everyone.
And like I guess by you saying that like that it works, you're not by any means saying that there isn't corruption in it. Obviously,
No.
you're just saying that like actually what you're witnessing is democracy in progress, which is true. It's like I don't know. At least I would very much like to believe that that's true. And talking to you about it has kind of made me more open to the idea that we have that. I guess like it's got to be a mixed bag though, because like, oh, maybe it's not things we vote on necessarily as much as things we don't vote on, like going to war. Like we don't have.
I mean, yeah, we don't have too much of an option on that. I'll agree with you.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like,
well,
or
I mean, constitutionally, that's a power granted to Congress.
okay, so yeah, and then but can't the president also just make executive decisions to do shit like that? No.
No, that's why, you know, a lot of the things that the United States has been involved in since World War II have been, you know, quote unquote police actions or things like that, because they're not actually, it's not a war, because only Congress can declare war. But I think that was part of the whole thing with there's that all those bills that came out right around 9/11, I think, that delegated, and I have to go back and read about this because I can't remember the details. It's been a while, but that sort of delegated some of that responsibility to the executive branch, sort of gave over some of Congress's war-making powers.
Okay. So that makes sense. So okay, Congress has control over how we go to war, but we'll just change the definition of war. This is a policing activity.
Right.
I gotcha.
It's what every big country does nowadays. I mean, look at Russia. They didn't call it a war.
Oh, it was a training exercise. Yeah.
It was like, oh, it's a training exercise. Oh, it's like, oh, we're just here to save the people of like Donbass or whatever, or we're just here to do this or that. They've never admitted that it's a war, even though it's clearly a war.
In fact, I was listening to some Russian POWs in Ukraine, and they were talking about how none of them knew that what they were getting into or why they were there. And also, apparently, there's a thing in Russia where if you disobey orders, like they can not only have you killed, but they can literally have your family killed.
Yeah, I can believe that.
Like legally.
Like, okay, so like a funny thing about that, like not the killing thing, but
Sure.
but a funny thing about the fact that they didn't know is, you remember how early on they were running out of fuel and stuff? So basically, because a lot of them were told it's just for training, like we're just gonna go in and back out or whatever, they noticed, oh, we have all this extra fuel with us. We're not gonna use it all because it's just a training exercise. So they sold a lot of it to like locals. And then that's why they ended up without fuel.
Oh shit!
Because of their own corruption. See?
Oh, I mean,
It's
Putin
their,
shot himself in the foot with that.
Yeah, but it's their own corruption as a result of the corruption of their government.
Yeah. Holy shit, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
That is, man, I love that. That's why the tanks are broken down on the side.
Yeah, because they already sold their fuel. Yeah, they have a little extra cash in their pockets, but like
that's
they're
hilarious.
just stuck in the middle of nowhere.
Damn. Man, I think Putin probably expected this to go a little differently.
I think so.
I mean, he should have expected his army to be corrupt if he's corrupt himself. Like that's just what happens.
Sure. How long? Like, I don't understand Russian politics even a little bit, and I'm not going to pretend to. But my understanding is he's been in power through some weird loopholes for a very long time.
Yeah.
Like he keeps basically changing his, like every time he doesn't go back to the same position, he goes to a different position. But then right before he leaves this position, he gives more authority to this position, and then vice versa. So he just is able to bounce back and forth. Some shit like that.
He's ex-KGB.
That's what he does.
Yeah. He's still got that KGB like swagger. Looking like a mega villain. And it's like, it is funny how like there are certain people that like Putin is. I don't think anyone likes Putin in the world. Not Russians, not anyone outside of Russia. And then like you have ones like Jeff Bezos he's basically like Lex Luthor. Like my point is these people that are kind of like these villain archetypes, they do it so well. They're just like embody what you would think of as like a comic book villain. Like I'm not saying Jeff Bezos is evil, but like, you know, the dick rocket, and also like the way he dresses and the way he looks, like you look like you're a super villain from a comic.
I wonder how Vonnegut would have written some of these characters.
Yeah. What would he even just have to say about our world and where we're at now? Like, yeah, it's a shame we'll never get another one.
No, I think he would have just been disappointed that we don't have laser guns yet.
He's been disappointed since fucking 76 or whatever.
Yeah, he's been one of them since.
Like maybe next year.
Yeah. Wait, you're telling me America isn't divided yet?
It's like
I'm gonna pop off, y'all. Thank you.
Yeah,
y'all.
absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. Liz and Hyatt from Cassette Stress, they are actually playing a show this Friday, house party. Yeah, and I guess for details, Alice, I guess just hit me up or hit them up. But you guys have other shows coming up soon, I think.
Yeah, we've got one. We've got a run coming up. We've got one June 10th at Springwater. We've got June 11th, Laundry Room in Murfreesboro, and then we've got June 16th back at Springwater.
Hell yeah. That's what's up. Thank you again so much for being here. This has been a blast.
This is great. It's
so much fun.
A lot of fun.
Awesome. Let me know what the book is for next round.
I'll be announcing it on the 1st if I don't get to you guys before that. I'm still on the fence. I'm not sure yet. So yeah, I'll definitely keep you guys up to date though.
Yeah, please.
Awesome.
Right on. We all have a good rest of the 25 minutes, and we'll catch y'all later.
Yeah. Y'all have a good night. See you Friday.
Good.
Yeah, I think we've there's so much to talk about with this book, but I think we've pretty much covered all the points I wanted to hit.
Let me think.
Yeah, I'm gonna grab some water real quick.
So I made a little Google Doc, so let me just check.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, I'm really glad you came too, because you're like really well versed in Kurt Vonnegut, at least comparatively to me. Like you were before the pod, you were telling me about I think it was it Timequake, or did we get into that after we went live?
Well, he brought up Timequake, but that's one of the ones I've read too. Once again, it runs around the whole theme of
It was Breakfast for Champions and Sirens of Titan. That's what we were talking about.
Because in the Sirens of Titan, it's kind of like the antagonist. He's not. I mean, antagonist in like he's not really the bad guy per se. Antagonist in like he's the one who's pulling the strings behind everything, but he's not like evil. He's not malicious or anything. But he's driving the main character to go through this whole thing because it was meant to happen. So it's like a lot of the same things basically. Like another example of that theme would be, have you seen The Lighthouse, the movie?
Yeah.
Once again, that's another example of that thing where the lighthouse, everything that happened was meant to be. I don't know if you got it, but there's this whole thing where like all these little clues that he picked up are clues of like the same thing already happening, and it happens over and over again. And what really cemented the idea was, you know, the Greek myth about that one dude. He's like a titan who gave Prometheus.
Oh, I'm very familiar with Prometheus.
So Prometheus, the whole fire, he gave humans fire. The fire is the lighthouse. And then his whole thing is, in the ending of the lighthouse, you see the seagulls are like tearing up his liver. And it's supposed to be a symbol of Prometheus and how
he was chained to the rock, getting his liver poked out
over and over and over and over again.
Holy fucking shit. I have to watch that movie again now.
Yeah, you have to watch it with that lens.
But since you brought up Prometheus, I'd like to talk about this a little bit. I don't know how literally and how figuratively I mean this, but I worship Prometheus. And what I mean by that is like Prometheus was a Titan. He wasn't one of the Greek gods.
He was a Titan.
Yeah, and he actually worked with Zeus to overthrow the Titans. So with Prometheus's help, he was like a traitor, and he helped Zeus usurp them. And which he was like a strategician. He taught Zeus war strategies about how to beat him. And then Zeus catches Prometheus giving man fire. And Zeus goes, "Oh shit, I know where this is going." So he punishes him for that. He chains him to the rock, and he's got his liver poked out for eternity. In some versions of the story, Heracles comes along and like frees him. But in some versions of the story, he's just there forever. And we see this story mimicked with in the Bible, in the serpent in the garden.
Yeah,
it's like
apple.
The apple is the fire, and snake is Prometheus, and it's like that character, the serpent, is punished for what he did. And I guess those are metaphors, but I metaphorically really appreciate what they did for us. And so to me, it kind of becomes like a holy trinity of like, it's not enough to just worship knowledge. It's knowledge itself, and then there's this mentor apprenticeship. So it creates like a holy trinity. And basically what that means in practice is I worship the acquisition and distribution of information.
Yeah, but leaders don't like that.
Yeah, absolutely not. That is like the core of my philosophy, and everything kind of goes around that. But man, that's crazy about the lighthouse. Holy shit. And we got on that because you said you were mentioning another Vonnegut book. Which one was that?
The
Oh, Titans of Siren.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Let me think of another example. So you like the whole metaphor about viewing humans as a millipede or whatever, centipede.
Yeah.
Here's how I visualize it, because since I'm a determinist, I literally believe in that idea, the idea of like time kind of like not existing. Think of it like this. Imagine if your life, your existence, or even just all existence in general was kind of like a DVD, where it's this complete object, like a circular object, right? And like, as a human being, you have no choice but to view the DVD as a per second, per frame thing, as in your experience of viewing the DVD is frame by frame from beginning to ending. But that doesn't change the fact that that DVD outside of the human perception exists as a whole. So
yeah.
So like the aliens in Kurt's books, they see the DVD while we can only experience the DVD basically second or half a second, just by like frame by frame by frame. But they see it as a whole.
And that's very hard to gaze into what that would be like. And like Kurt Vonnegut's a genius at like trying to help you visualize what that'd be like, because I can kind of grasp what you're saying, but it's like when I try to put myself there, I have no idea.
It's impossible, yeah,
what that would be like.
Because even the way he did it, it's still not the full picture. Like the way he did it would be like the DVD, and you're just skipping between different sections of the DVD. But there's no way for a human to perceive the DVD as a whole, as it really is. But that doesn't change the fact that it still exists. Like the ending of that DVD will always be the same, or even the middle, or the past, or whatever, despite whatever. Like, and another way to think about it is like in the book, like they mentioned, like you as a kid exist right now. You as a baby, you as a kid, you as someone who's old, and even you dying, it all exists at the same time. The DVD still exists outside of that.
What's up, David? David, this is David.
I'm David.
Hey, David.
What's up?
David, you should join us. We're filming right now, but we're talking about determinism. And David is a hardcore determinist.
Oh yeah.
He also has a roommate named Alex. So you're basically the same person. Yeah,
Exactly. It was determined.
it was determined. Yeah, but we're about to go back into tinfoil hat territory, but just warning, Alice. But I've done DMT many times in my life, and something I've run across is like, it's like a super common thing for entities, like to encounter some kind of entity. The thing that's always been confusing to me about that is like, why are these higher powers fucking with me? Like I seem pretty insignificant compared to this thing that's taking like a very personal interest in me. But if time isn't a thing, then they have an infinite amount of time to do everything. So that kind of, what you saying that is what maybe that kind of like got me thinking about that. Like I wonder if that's just a misunderstanding on my part of like, it's not really a big deal for them to be taking this time to interact with
Well,
me.
yeah, I mean, it's the same thing with religious people, or specifically with Christians. God has time for them all, because God is that kind of being. Like going back to the Donnie Darko thing, I don't know if you knew this about Donnie Darko, but the director is actually religious.
Okay.
And he kind of meant it as a religious metaphor. I don't know if he meant to do the whole determinist thing on purpose, even though it works and all that. But like the little glowing thing that goes out of his chest or whatever, that leads him to where he's going to go in his path or whatever, that's like God's plan or God's design or whatever. But that's literally just determinism.
Yeah, it's just another way of looking at it. Yeah, 100%. It's like God has a plan, fate,
determinism, exactly. But only God, or as in only a God or a godlike being, can perceive time that way. We just never can.
Interesting. Let me throw this at you. Like I don't have any like logical reason for this. It's kind of an intuition. It was actually something I was like shown on a DMT trip, which I want to be clear also. we're talking about drug experiences, so I take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah, don't do it.
I'm fully aware that my experiences could be completely internal. And I like to keep that in my mind. However, that's not what it feels like pretty much unanimously for people. And one of the things that I've experienced is that in the beginning, the universe just kind of was, and then something happened where the universe woke up to the fact that it existed. So it's like it had always been here, but then like it wasn't really not consciously aware of itself until something happened and it was. When the universe wakes up to itself, it's profoundly alone because there's no life, I guess. There's stuff going on, but or maybe not. Maybe there's nothing going on yet. But at a certain point, consciousness arises from nothing, and it's profoundly alone because it's all there is. So it creates life so that it can go down and forget that it's alone. So what I'm getting at is I think you and I and David are all literally the same person. And so that's actually gets back to determinism too, because what would make us different is our experience and also like our genetics. But beyond that, I think like the soul that pilots is identical for everyone. This one, curious what you think about that.
Sort of like how a lot of people see reincarnation in a way, like because there are people who like, I don't know, it's like called the egg theory or whatever. I personally don't believe it, but it's the whole idea of like we're all the same person just living through different lives or whatever.
Okay.
Kind of like what you're saying, but you're saying it happens all at once or whatever.
Yeah, it would be one entity simultaneously living everything. And I don't extend this just to people. I would say it's all life. It's insectoid life, everything. I don't really I don't have any logical reason for that except just this intuition and a weird experience I had. But that is the narrative that makes the most sense to me about our universe. I don't, obviously take that with a grain of salt. Who knows? But that's what I think's going on. Beyond determinism, do you have any concepts of what's going on? I guess to be more specific, what do you think happens after you die?
Oh, nothing.
Okay.
But that's because it's kind of like a problem I have. I don't really like, that's the only, determinism is the only metaphysical thing that I believe in. But like it's not really that metaphysical in a way. I don't know. It's just always been hard for me to believe in anything metaphysical. It's not like I can't disprove it either. It's not like that. But like I just feel like if I can't prove something, but at the same time, it's like okay, how about this? Here's a question. If there was a God that's directly spoke to you and told you, I'm God, I'm real, or whatever, would you believe it?
That's reminiscent of another DMT trip where that literally happened. And this thing didn't feel like God. I didn't feel divine. It felt alien. So I had kind of like this like hesitation and like, so I think to constructulate back to like to what you're saying, like maybe I would need more information.
But here's the thing. I feel like in my case, I don't think there's any amount of information that would be enough.
Okay.
That would ever make me believe that. I would believe that like my mind would just automatically try to say, oh, it's something impersonating God. But it's like the fact that I'm a human, I don't have the perception to ever truly see what's real, or like I can't even prove if this reality is like real.
Yeah.
In a way. It's kind of like, how do I explain it?
We know nothing. We know, like Socrates, I think therefore I am.
Yeah.
is also kind of an assumption.
It's not, yeah, it's an assumption.
Yeah. We don't know anything at all.
Like a way I like to visualize it, it's kind of like this. Like even science is kind of like okay, so imagine you're playing a video game. Like, what's your favorite video game?
The Binding of Isaac.
The Binding of Isaac. Okay, you're playing the Binding of Isaac. You can pick up all your little power ups. You know that if you combine this power up with this power up, it has this effect or whatever, right? You could even do the math, the science, everything behind it, right?
Sure.
And like technically all the science and everything, all the math you're doing is correct. You know, this power up combined with this, and this
Okay.
this enemy has this much health, so I can kill him in these many shots or whatever, right?
Mhm.
That's science to me,
Okay.
or the way we humans do science.
Yeah.
However, as human beings, we can't perceive the actual code behind what actually makes it all work. So like we know how a fire is made, we know how something melts, but we don't know why. The why is the code, and only a designer
okay.
only a designer can see that.
Interesting.
So like anything that can be shown to me in this video game, or as in my perception of reality, it's only stuck within this framework. I can't see outside of this framework.
Sure. Yeah. And no one can.
And because of that, I can't believe in anything metaphysical.
Okay.
But it's not necessarily like, I don't think everyone should like live that way.
No, yeah. This is man, this is like what I love to do is like these kind of conversations. I think the truth is somewhere in what we're saying. So like I think it's really important to try and arrive at it. And these kind of conversations, like especially when people don't see eye to eye completely, that's when it's really special. And also really rare, because I don't think a lot of people are willing to do that, like humor ideas that aren't their own, like or disagree with their own. So do you, okay, so you had brought up the code thing, which got me thinking. Do you think this is a matrix? Do you think it is designed?
It could be, but I just have
There's no way to know.
There's no way to know. That's the issue.
Sure. If you had an intuition about it.
I don't. I just don't.
Okay.
That's the issue.
No,
like,
that's fair.
Like it's kind of like, okay, even if you could see the code, then someone could be like, okay, you can see the code, but what about the designer and his thought process that made the code? And that's like a whole other step back. And then, okay, then what created the designer? And then what created the designer of the designer? And it just kind of becomes this infinite loop, or like, where's reality?
And if we observe nature, there are things that appear to us, at least, to not have limits, like the universe. It appears to be expanding infinitely. And maybe one day it'll start coming back in or something. But the fact to me that it's expanding means there's something beyond where the furthest star is, where the most boundary star is. It's going out further. So there's like it seems to me infinite. So it's not a stretch for me to say like there are things that exist outside the restraints of our universe, that kind of maybe designed or designed or created. And that doesn't, to me personally, does not feel that much of a jump, because we see infinity in nature. At least I think so. That's what it looks like. But again, who knows,
Yeah, that's the issue. Or at least that's my issue. Like I said, because my thing is like that, I can't really dispute anybody else. Like I'm not gonna go up to someone and be like, no, you're completely wrong or whatever, because like I don't even know.
Yeah, you have your ideas of things, but you're not like rooted in like you're open-minded. Yeah.
Or like in my case, it's like impossible to be rooted because of the mindset or the framework I'm in.
Yeah. I'm very dogmatic about anti-dogmatism. I think that's the only thing to be dogmatic about is open-mindedness. If you're stuck in your ways about anything else, you're only detrimenting yourself. Well, you're also detrimenting society for not achieving brilliance. It's like, or open-mindedness. But we it's really important, you know, and like we're just talking about the universe and who are we, but it is important, you know, like we're not scientists. We're not, I won't speak for you. I'm not a scientist. I don't know what's going on, but like, but it's still important.
But even like I said, in my case, even with scientists, all they can ever do is just explain how things happen.
Yeah. And you had brought up the scientific process earlier and how science works. Kind of like you used Binding of Isaac as an example.
Yeah.
You know, science is like constantly adjusting itself too. It's like, oh, we were wrong about this, but that's fine because that's that's science in progress. It's like no scientist is saying, I know exactly how the universe works.
True.
Like they're going, we have assumptions, you know, based on what we observe, and oftentimes they're wrong, like and need to be corrected, you know. And we're somewhere in the process, and like I guess what a time to be alive right now. A pivotal point in history. It could be the end of the world, you know, easily.
You don't think you were born too early?
You know, I hear people like, I was born too late a lot. And it's like, man, the 70s, or like the hippie era, man, that's where I'm supposed to be. It's like our quality of life, like things suck now, they do. But our quality of life on a whole has drastically improved because of technology. Like we're in a vastly better place as far as comfort goes than we ever have in history. And like, I'm sure that'll probably be true going into the future, even if things, you know, get corrupt and awful. It's like for the people that are sitting on top of it, it's going to be very comfortable.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, I always resent that when people are like, I was maybe I could see born too early. I could see that.
That's how I feel.
Because it's like we're actually Terrence McKenna has something about, he says like, you know, we were born too late to explore, to chart out maps. Yeah. And we were born too early for space travel. So what our generation has kind of done is like the psychonaut inner, like what's going on with this and this and this, and like not I guess not just drugs, but like meditation and inner work, like because there's that itself is another like the human mind is incredibly vast. Like we understand very little about it, about as much as we do about our oceans or our universe, you know.
Yeah.
And how that thing interacts with the world is very interesting. I think real and imaginary are kind of faulty. I think that's English failing us. I think it's more like what exists and the potential. And the reason I make a distinction is I think what you imagine exists. It's in another place.
What, fourth dimension?
Yeah. I think the fourth dimension might be imagination, which, you know, if we're talking about dimensions, that's something that kind of gets wonky with people. Like,
I mean,
like
Kurt,
we're three-dimensional, you know.
Kurt
like,
kind of touched on that.
About dimensions.
I Slaughterhouse-Five. That in the fourth dimension, that's where they have goblins and werewolves and vampires, like the imagination.
Oh shit! Yeah, he did. I wonder if I could find that part. Do you remember?
I have no idea.
Damn.
But it's there. Okay, it's there.
No, I remember. Yeah, and that is, yeah, that's like eerily similar to what I'm talking about too. Is like, yeah, that stuff exists. I think that's literally true. But the difference is it's not here. And the reason I make that distinction is there's this phenomena that occurs when like children have imaginary friends. Religion is that expanded. Religion is us going, hey David, my imaginary friend's pretty cool. You should also be interested in him. Here are his attributes. Fuel this character in your own mind. So now we're collaborating on this thing that exists, in my opinion, like out there. So it's like it comes from us, but now it's independent. There's a word for it. It's called an egregore. But the and like there's another version of it called a servitor, which is like instead of being like something of reverence above you, it's like a servant class. It's like a familiar. But
I think that's true because there's something about this phenomenon of religion that I think is being overlooked. Like there's something to that where it's like all across the world in cultures that are completely disconnected from each other, this theme of reverence, this theme of a higher power, either that thing. I guess what I'm saying, there's evidence for this thing to actually exist because remote people in other places all collectively agree about it, even though they might not have the same dressing and face for it, or even interact with each other. They have this idea in their minds. And so that thing either exists, or when you fuel it, it becomes alive, in my opinion.
Okay, then I have a question for you.
Mhm.
Okay, do you believe in souls then?
Yeah.
Okay. How do you feel about AI?
Like as far as life?
Okay, so let me be more specific. Yeah, with life. So could an AI ever have a soul? Could it ever be intelligent enough to have a soul?
So I believe in a soul, but I don't know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have an answer. I think maybe a soul can be developed. You familiar with there's an ancient Jewish concept of a golem.
Mm-hmm.
It's like mud made life. The Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible are a golem. It's or at least it was written to be a golem. Like the Bible talks about how this contains the living word of God,
Mm-hmm.
and you are possessed by Holy Spirit. When I don't think these rabbis were talking metaphorically. What they're saying is like there's an ancient form of Hebrew storytelling called chiastic literature, is what we call it now, where a story starts in one place and it ends. It's a circle. It ends in the same place. It's an ancient Hebrew form of storytelling, but we see it adapted with Alice in Wonderland and some other great works.
So kind of like the hero's journey.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's something about when you complete. Okay, so like what I'm saying is when I'm reading a story, when I'm reading about Billy is going through the motions as I'm reading it. Like I'm in this fourth dimension of potential we're talking about. I'm making Billy reenact this thing over again. And like every time someone reads it, they're doing that. Now, Billy and his principles become alive in you. It's like and we can talk about this in magical terms, or we can talk about it completely without magical terms and just say a character in a story you can relate with, and their morals and principles might affect you and how you look at the world.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when these rabbis are talking about being possessed by Holy Spirit, that's actually what they're saying, but they're using magical terminology around it, which I go back and forth about how helpful that is. Like, if people wouldn't have such a like, that's whimsical bullshit about these concepts if we didn't talk about it in magical terms. Because I think the wizards and the scientists are actually in agreement. Like you were talking about religious people's idea of God and how that kind of correlates, the concept of fate and God's plan correlates to your concept of determinism. It's like everyone's saying the same thing, they just don't know it. Yeah. AI, I'll go back to that. I don't know what constitutes a soul, but I think they exist. I wish I had a better answer for your question.
Because I don't believe in souls, but like my issue with people who do believe in souls, then you would ask them like, well, then how do you prove it? Because like let's say I created an AI that could actually communicate to you the way I'm communicating to you right now, like just completely 100%. How do you know I have a soul?
I don't have no way to verify that.
So if you can't verify that with an AI, wouldn't you logically just be forced to like give them that soul just by default if they're able to communicate with you like that?
think we kind of have to. We have to develop AI rights at a certain point.
But a lot of people aren't going to grant that, especially religious people.
Nope. You familiar with Lex Friedman?
Mm-mm.
He's a funny guy. He has a podcast. Shout out to Lex Friedman, much more popular than mine. But he like hit one of his whole things is he really wants to date an AI. Like he wants a robot companion.
Uh-huh.
Have you seen new Blade Runner?
Yeah.
Yeah, like that basically. Like, and I think, you know, that's probably I guess the reason I brought it up is it touches on what we're talking about. If you're in a relationship with this robot and it's indistinguishable from a relationship with a human, what is that thing? What does it have a soul? And if it doesn't have a soul, do you? Which I guess that's you don't think so.
Mm-mm.
Yeah. So this I guess maybe it comes back to the free will thing. If we don't have souls, maybe we operate as though we do. Like kind of like, even though we're in determinism, it's like you go through your life operating as though you had free will.
Yep.
Maybe this is where that soul thing kind of comes into play too, where it's like, even if you don't have a soul, let's say AIs objectively do not have souls, they are still going to act like humans, and like, because, you know, it's our hand that made it, so there's the human interaction with it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I'm getting twisted up.
No, but I know what you're trying to say. But yeah, that they would act like they have a soul, like kind of like what the aliens and Kirk believe, and I believe like humans are machines.
Okay.
That our brains are machines, and that like our belief in free will and our belief in souls is kind of like a byproduct of that, because we have no choice. Just like if like what you were trying to say was, if you build an AI like that, then it would be in the same situation. It would believe that it had a soul or free will or so forth.
Yes.
Even if you could literally look into its brain and see the actual code that creates that.
Yeah. It's like, no, there's no soul here. It's just ones and zeros. It's like, no, I'm alive, dude. Like, I feel alive. I feel
Exactly
existential dread.
I'm literally talking to you right now.
Yeah.
But I feel like humans operate the same. We just can't see the 0 and 1s.
Yeah, man, that I have no counterpoint to that. That makes a lot of sense. I guess the only thing about it is it makes me uncomfortable. I don't like that idea.
I mean, if you were an AI robot, and especially if you didn't even know you were an AI robot, that would make you uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Like if someone just came up behind your head and was like, here, let me just unscrew this and show you that you're an AI robot.
Yeah, that would suck. That would fucking suck. It pulls your chip out, like, see, here.
Yeah, it's you.
Like, oh shit. Yeah. And you know, maybe that's just a misunderstanding of like organic machines versus like these like circuit machines. It's like,
but the thing is, an organic thing is still a physical thing.
Yeah. We have these maybe there's something to be said about like actually we might, going into the future, this might be something we could hypothesize a test to see about, because could an AI, if it had lungs and a brain, could it experience DMT or psilocybin mushrooms?
I mean, yeah, technically you could.
And what would it experience? Would it be a similar thing to what, you know, like say we created not just AI, but we create androids that are like organic, or not, is that a cyborg or an android?
No, it's Android.
Okay.
Oh, well, yeah, it's Android. Because cyborg would be a human who you turn into a robot.
Okay.
While an android is like the reverse. It's a robot that you're trying to turn into a human.
Synthetic, but organic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So if we created an android that had like an actual nervous system and it had a brain, would it experience drug trips the same way? That might not give us an answer to whether souls exist, but it might give us some insight into that.
Do you want to give robots DMT? Okay.
Let's see what happens.
That sounds like an experiment.
I've always said, like, if I ever met an extraterrestrial, what I would want to do is use a Ouija board with them. And would they be like, oh yeah, we know all about this, bro? Or be like, oh, you're doing that weird thing where you, like, it's a mirror and you're talking to yourself. Would they be like that? Or would they be like, oh yeah, we know all about the aliens from this other dimension? Like, we're bros. What would that be like?
See, now here's the issue. You were born too early to give robots DMT.
Yeah, maybe I was born too early. Yeah.
There's another reality where you were born just a little later, and that could have been like your little scientific project or whatever, your college thesis or something.
I like the idea that the gap is like a second. So if I was born a second later, not a year, not a month, not a day, like a second. If I was born a second later, like I would have been around long enough.
Yeah, you never know.
That'd be funny. I won't take up too much more of your time because we're already over. But I'm curious, do you have any ideas about how human life came to be? Do you have like a run of the mill like natural selection?
Natural selection?
I guess how did human beings come to be on Earth?
I mean, it's natural selection. If I want to be more specific about it, I guess it would be like, I think it was a flaw. Like, I don't think it was meant to happen. I think it was a genetic flaw that turned out to be like the greatest gift we ever got. And I think it all comes down to like the fact that as babies, we're so useless. And our like growth period in comparison to other animals is so fucked that it actually helped us, because like with other animals, after a year or two, their babies are like old enough that they can just fuck off and they're fine. But it's the fact that we actually raise our kids, that we can actually teach them, that gave us our strength. Like, I think that's where everything else comes from.
Okay.
Like imagine if we were just born like other animals, where like our babies were like already fully grown at 2 or 3 years, and we never bothered teaching them anything, then they would just like, we would still be primates basically.
Yeah. Yep. That makes me think about information and knowledge in general about how we could regress if we don't carry these ideas down.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we would. I mean, like, if
Yeah.
you just took a bunch of babies right now and you just dump them, like,
They wouldn't know shit.
they wouldn't know shit.
They've never developed a
just
lot
be
of the
re-
things we
It would
did.
just be revert. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, it's only like literally our greatest strength is information, and information is only a byproduct of the fact that we need it. Otherwise, we just die.
That's a really interesting idea, and I don't think I've ever heard that sapiens was a flaw. That's fascinating.
Because I mean, can you think of any other?
No,
living-
if it, like, okay, if humans just arose through natural selection, what in that process, what
Is what
about
triggered it.
survival would trigger sapiens? That doesn't,
Mhm.
what is
And that's my theory, at least. It's that aspect, the fact that out of all the other species, we have the longest like time period like with our parents in a way.
Yeah.
Or meeting our parents.
I wonder if that might not be explained by like a reverse though. Like, because we have sapiens, maybe affects how we develop. I don't know.
What do you mean in reverse?
Like, you're saying we develop sapiens hypothetically because we have this long development period.
Mhm.
I'm saying hypothetically, what if we have a long development period because we have sapiens?
But then what comes first? That's the issue.
That gives us right back to square one of what caused sapiens. Yeah. No, I have no clue. To me, it feels like there's a missing link. To me, it feels like it's not. It is obviously evolution, but there's something that happened. Like Terrence McKenna has something called the stoned ape theory, where primates took psilocybin hispanica and like,
I've heard of those.
yeah.
Yeah.
Or there's another idea about like alien intervention. Like, there were like our oldest living document. If you weren't aware of this, is pretty interesting. The oldest document we have recorded, unless we found something more found something more recently, is the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is an old Sumerian tablet. And it talks about the oldest record we have tells a story of how we came to be. And it's, talks about the Anunnaki came down and basically something about gold is valuable to them. I can't remember what I think it's for their atmosphere or something, according to the mythos. But they came down here, and instead of harvesting this stuff themselves, they spliced some of their own DNA into primates and kept them at a pretty like servant baseline level of intelligence, where all they did was work and harvest gold or build pyramids, whatever. And then this one called Enki comes along, and he does something about like tweaking DNA even more, and that's where Sapiens comes in. And then what's interesting is the story kind of fizzles out. It doesn't really have a clear ending. And I think if we're following that narrative, and if that is what happened, then, following that assumption, I think what probably happened is we killed them off or we ran them off. It's like, oh shit, these things are intelligent now, and there's millions of them.
So it was that guy Prometheus?
Exactly. I was about to get into Prometheus, Enki, Lucifer. It's like all the same thing. I don't necessarily think that's what's happening, but it seems to me like there's a missing link. Like how do you get from chimp to person? That might be an Occam's razor, what you're saying though. That might be more simple than mushrooms or aliens.
I mean, yeah. If you want to use Occam's razor, then my theory would be more closer to that. But at the same time, it's like, who the fuck knows?
Who the fuck knows? Yep, not us.
But well, talking about your theory, here's my question then, because I also think this. Do you think there was a subspecies of humanity, or because there were separate versions?
Oh, like Neanderthals?
Yeah, for example. Do you think there's a subset of humanity that was actually smarter? Because I believe in that.
Ooh, shit. Probably not, because they would have survived.
Nope.
No?
I disagree.
What?
Do you know why we're weaker than the other primates? Because of our brains. Our brains consume so many calories.
Oh, okay.
The Ice Age would have killed off any subspecies of humanity that was smarter than us.
Oh shit. It's not an evolution, it's a regression.
Yeah. Like I could, like, if there was a hypothetical human species, like, but let's say double our brain size, they would need double the calories just to keep that thing running.
Oh fuck. So like some of these old statues we see with elongated skulls and shit,
yep.
like they
could have been basically survivors, but that would have died off anyways, or interbred with like the other regular humans.
Fuck, that's so depressing if that's true. It's
I mean, it
definitely could be. Yeah. That's like man, that's some food for thought. I never thought about that.
Oh, and on top of that, their bodies would have actually been weaker than ours. Going by the whole thing, primates are so much muscular because that's where all their calories go to. It goes to upkeeping their muscles and body, while our calories go to our brain. So a hypothetical species that's smarter than us would also be weaker and more frail. Much more easier for our version of humanity to just bonk them on their incredibly big heads.
We're the what we conceptualize as Neanderthals, we're that to them.
Yep. Because the thing about evolution, it's not really about making the best species. Because if that was true, then we would still have saber-toothed tigers.
Yeah.
They're like the apex of tigers. Instead, we get the shittier tigers because they need less calories. They need less, like, calories is just such a big important thing of like why things end up the way they are. Not everything is going to be like the fastest, strongest.
Efficiency.
Yep, efficiency.
Instead of T-Rexes, you get chickens.
And instead of the best versions of humanity, you just get us.
Well, when you say it like that, that makes perfect sense. That's like, we're probably somewhere in the middle as far
somewhere
as
intelligence. In the middle. Yeah, we're not like the dumbest and most physical, like the way what was
Neanderthal.
Yep, but we're not. I don't think we're the smartest though.
Fair enough, man. That makes I can see that for sure.
But it's like you said, it's kind of depressing when you think about it that way.
Yeah, I did hear that the Smithsonian found a lot of large bones, like a large human-esque bones. And when America was being colonized, they had like thousands of them destroyed. I don't know how true that is either, but that's something I've heard.
But yeah, I mean, I've also heard about like you said about the elongated skulls, like that you can find them in all over like South America and like all these weird areas in the world.
And then like there are cultures that do like the head binding thing,
but they look completely different.
They look completely different
because ours come with like deformations or cracks and stuff. All theirs were just like
that's just the way it works. Yeah. And that would make sense if those things were walking around. It's like this culture is like, wow, they're smarter than us. They're more sophisticated. I'm going to mimic their. It might even been something as primal as like, if I shape my head like that, I'll be smart too.
But
yeah,
they didn't make it though. That's just how it rolls, you know.
Damn. You know, yeah, maybe an ice age, or it could be something like they wiped themselves out, like war fighting and shit like that. That seems to be a pretty human story. So it's like this last thing real quick. There's a connection between intelligence and unhappiness. Have you heard about this? It's like the most intelligent people are not happiest people. There's not a lot of crossover with that.
Okay, yeah. I mean, imagine having that intelligence during the Stone Age.
Oh God, that'd be really depressing.
Exactly.
You're just like, I have a very fucked up situation. I guess I'm gonna make the most of it. Well, that's kind of where we're at.
Sure.
It's a different degree though. It's like, yeah.
But wouldn't they look at us and envy, like us more simple-minded, you know, just like being happy with like whatever, just we're just happy bonking animals in the head and eating meat, like.
Yeah, there does seem to be like this kind of like what's the word, like an elitism that, I mean, I guess, yeah, that's been a thing throughout human culture for a long time, is like looking down on other people for, and like yeah, if there were aliens that were hyper intelligent to us, they probably would be, well, maybe not, maybe they're so intelligent that it's like they see the enlightenment in living in the moment as being happy.
But that's not guaranteed though.
Yeah.
Or like there's like you said, there's levels to it.
Yep. There's different kinds of intelligence too. There's wisdom. There's getting to D&D. There's a wisdom, intellect, and charisma are like three big ones. It's like social intelligence, like the ability to figure out how things work, and like application. Yeah, I think that's a big part too. If we ran into aliens, they might be smarter than us in some ways, but we might consider them dumber than us in other ways too. Just different. Well, David.
All right, that's a good stopping point, I suppose.
Yeah, we definitely got to do this again. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for coming, man.
Of course.
Alice, Slaughterhouse-Five. If you haven't read it yet, I think this is a perfect time for you to do so. And I will announce the next book club soon. I'm not still on the fence, not sure what we're doing yet. But yeah, we'll catch you next week. Bye.